to be honest. And the reason, prices have gone up, petroleum, that's a classic example. That's because all the gas comes from Russia. I mean, Putin, he's almost got the world in his hand. And because he's been in power for 22 years now, he's been in power, he can sit back and he thinks he controls the world, which he doesn't. But financially, he can have a lot of devastating effects on a lot of countries, financially, with food as well. People are going without food because all the prices have rocketed because of the disruptions he's caused.
And I can add.
May I please say something? Can I add something? I mean, I've been listening to this for a while now, and I see everybody blaming, just Putin alone. That's fine. I do agree with you that what Putin's doing, he has so much power to control stuff. But to be pretty rational and be unbiased, and if we're going to be talking about certain crimes, we will be looking at both sides, the East and the West, right? So having said that, if you talk about foreign interference, I believe the United States of America is a very notorious state regarding, regime change and foreign interference in different countries. They would topple off democratically elected leaders, and, President Obama can go about proudly saying that they toppled off a democratically elected leader. So I think that's pretty unfair. And I just heard somebody said that the West are civilized while the rest are barbarians. I mean, this is a pretty old narrative that was actually cleared by Edward Said in the form of imperialism versus Orientalism. I believe Orientalism somewhat has died over time, but imperialism is still persisting. To be honest, we are a global village, and living in a 21st century, we should be peaceful because everything Alex, I'll just give me a moment, yeah? Because my point is, we're in the 21st century. We are a global village. Everything is connected to one thing and the other. One crisis, topples off the entire world in a domino effect. We are currently witnessing all of that. People are here from different countries. I see everybody complaining about it. And so we got to be fair and open-minded about it. If we will be criticizing the East, we also should be looking at the West, so that we can come at a consensus on how to go about what is the peaceful way on how we can form a very peaceful world, utopian world. It's not going to be a utopian world. I mean, unfortunately, we do have a dystopian reality at the moment at our hands. But this is what we're trying to resist, right? This is what I think for now. Yeah.
This war, it's going to go on, I guarantee you, for at least the next 3 years. And unfortunately, no one's going to win, because Putin will just keep sending his troops in, no matter how many get killed. As I say, there's over 20,000 now, unfortunately. And Ukraine, they'll put up, a fight until the end, as we've seen. So this is just going to go on, and civilians, as well as soldiers, being deceased. But I guarantee you, this is just an ongoing war, and no one's going to win at the end of this. No one. It's just going to be ongoing.
I think it's just going to be like the war that we just witnessed of the United States and Afghanistan. Actually, nobody won. It was just an ongoing mess for 20 years. At the end, there was trillions of dollars spent of U.S. taxpayer money, which could have been spent on humanitarian purposes within USA in uplifting the people. But that was wasted on what? On military expedition in country far away that you gain nothing from. And so many soldiers died. 80,000 Pakistani people died in that war. They had nothing to do with that war. And they're still blamed for it. They're, smeared for it. Right now, I'm hearing they just toppled off their current prime minister through a foreign interference by the United States and to a vote of no confidence. the government has been toppled off. Why? Because he was kind of speaking against the
He will come back
policies that
stronger.
were.
The whole nation is with him. The whole nation is with him. He will come back stronger, I think.
Right.
I think he will.
So basically, even in Afghanistan, there's a crisis that has been going on. I mean, we can currently say that Ukraine is in a crisis. I do believe that. You have all my heart and support for the Ukrainian people. There should be no war. I'm a very anti-war guy. I'm a humanitarian. So, having said that, I mean, there have been crises growing up since the past 50 years in countries that the West were sleeping, were blind to. They wouldn't let anybody speak about them or criticize. You can criticize about this kind of stuff going on in football now all of a sudden, and all other things where politics wasn't allowed before. But if you were speaking for, like I was somebody based out of Palestine or Syria or Libya or any of these Oriental states, suddenly you were labeled as the bad guy. You were critiqued for speaking up. So I think that's kind of unfair. We should be against war, be it Russia or be it United States of America, which has, by the way, only been at peace for 16 years. Please forget not. And it has been the only country to nuke, and the first country and the only country to nuke another state. So please do not, United States shouldn't be schooling other countries about,
Can I tell you something? Why don't we talk about, you're talking about Palestine and other Kashmir stuff. Why we don't talk about the war between Muslim each other, like Sunni against Shia? Yesterday there was a bomb in Afghanistan where 35 Shia get killed by ISIS in Afghanistan, I think. Every day there is an attack over Shias. Every day there is a Muslim killing each other. So don't blame the West every time. Why don't you blame yourself sometimes as well?
I completely understand. I do blame them.
So what I mean?
I believe the Muslim countries have been at fight the crisis.
Can we go back to the topic, please?
Oil has been the curse for Middle East, which they're fighting for. The Sunni Shia fight amongst themselves. They've been fighting over oil, and they have had their differences, and it's easier to make them split up in their sectarian division. So, yes, that has been a problem. I do agree with that. There has been lots of extremism and lots of groups that shouldn't have been existing there, and yes, something should be done about it. So,
let's focus, I think, on the Russian-Ukrainian subjects better. So,
this is a geopolitical show. That's why I named it that. Geopolitics and world events.
Yeah, that's why
I started this show where we can talk about all this stuff, not just one subject. We can talk about any of it. I'm not a one-subject show.
If we can talk about the other things, we're gonna go deep into it. If we're gonna talk about Palestine and Israel and all the stuff, that's going to take a lot of but that's fine. If you want to talk about that, that's totally
I only got 30 minutes left in this show anyway. I've been doing these shows off and on for 2 or 3 months. I did these shows for a month and a half straight, and I'd like to tell everybody, this ain't just Ukraine, Russia. This is Iran, Iraq, Syria, Australia. This is everything. This ain't just a one subject show. I know Ukraine and Russia is the biggest thing, and that's fine. But I'm just saying that if I have someone on and they want to talk about a different geopolitical subject, they can. That's what this show's about. Again, geopolitics. In geopolitics, there's no good guy or bad guys. There's just political moves by each country. In some countries, big geopolitical moves don't add up to big wars, whereas other countries' geopolitical moves add up to world wars. And what we're looking at right now, I believe, is a world war. I'm not saying nuclear war now, but I'm saying world war. And the West knew fine and well what could happen at the beginning days of this. We knew, and this is just geopolitics. This is business. As the mafia would say, this ain't personal, this is just business.
Right. I see Russia moving towards the other economic system that it's called SWIFT, I believe, that is being offered by China. since the sanctions have been laid upon Russia to trade, and I think the petrodollar thing will be over soon if Russia and China persist and all other countries take lead. So the petrodollar deal that had been signed on going for so many years would suddenly will crash and will not be there anymore. And I think that's going to be a big blow to the United States. I think so.
Wait, well, when we see right now what is happening, Russia is losing so much. They lost their biggest ship, which is Moscow. Their biggest ship, it's getting annihilated, getting eliminated by the Ukrainian, and even with the arms. So we're seeing a lot of loss every day, and there's huge logistic problems.
For the huge financial loss in gas, petroleum. For example, the US Army announced today they intend to cut back on 25% of fuel costs for helicopters, Apaches, Black Hawks. So, what does that tell you? That tells you there's a lack of fuel for military vehicles. That's all because Putin's cut off the gas because he's been sanctioned by the West.
Hey, I'm going to let somebody. Did you want to speak, Sean?
Yeah, I was thinking about what you guys were saying about energy, and I noticed that actually yesterday, it looks to me like the European Union is blinking on Russia's demand for them to pay for energy in rubles. They put out a document basically offering guidance on energy companies giving payment to Gazprom Bank. The gap here appears to be when each party considers the payment fulfilled. So the EU is saying that the payment's fulfilled when the dollars or euros are paid, and Russia is saying that the payment is fulfilled when it's transferred into rubles and then remitted back to the central bank. Or I think it's the central bank. But in any event, they've been playing a game of chicken over this, and March 31st, Putin issued the decree, and the first payments are due, I believe, in the next couple weeks here. But I wouldn't discount what's going on in the energy industry. I think you're absolutely right that this is an attack on the dollar that we're seeing, and it's going to be something really important to keep an eye on.
So they're hoping to invade from the east, but down on the lower west, he's got troops in Moldova now.
Yeah, the Transnistria, the army, the Russian army is in Transnistria, and if Russia is able to get Odessa, they will link this population with the rest of Russia, and that will be actually a big hit on NATO. I don't think NATO will let Odessa fall, because Odessa, when it's fall, if it's failed, that means Russia will have a border with Romania, which is a NATO country. I don't think NATO will allow that. Personally, I hope the best for the NATO countries. I hope the best for Ukraine to get all their lands, and I want Russia to stop this war, and I want Russia to fail, and I want Russia to lose. And I think that at the end of the day, NATO will win and Russia will lose.
Going back to the way the Russian troops have carried out their exercises, as so-called, in Ukraine, what about all the war crimes they're committing? You don't see all of them on the news. I've seen some of them. Civilians, they're shooting dead when they invaded. They're raping Ukrainian women, the children that are dying there, and the mass graves they're digging to try and cover up their tracks. It's almost like a rerun of the Second World War in a way, what the Nazis done. Yeah, they've got the nerve to call Ukrainians Nazis. I've actually seen photos of Russian soldiers that have been taken captive and stripped with swastikas on the back. What does that tell you? Yeah, they call Ukrainian Nazis, as Putin says, and that's his excuse for invading them. It's all hypocrisy, a lot of this.
I'm just seeing right now.
I just heard somebody said, like that a certain NATO country doesn't want to share a border with Russia, right? And I think that Russia, before all this war began, while Ukraine was pushing for NATO, appealing towards NATO and trying to incline towards the West, Russia had been warning them that they think it's a security concern. It's a matter of national security for Russia, as per Putin. So what his concern, based on the same thing that like a NATO country wouldn't want to share borders with Russia because that would be a threat to the Western world or NATO. Likewise, similarly, it was a threat for Russia that Ukraine is influenced towards NATO and has military NATO bases on its border, especially when it's having a base in the West. So I think that was one of the things that triggered Putin or Russia into this war.
I agree with you there. You're absolutely right. Like I said, Ukraine was neutral between it, separated the East and the West. You had NATO on one side and Russia on the other. And now, it's a fact. I mean, NATO has slowly been working their way into Ukraine throughout the years, going in there, especially 2014. When the president got overthrown there, that was a Russian-leaning president, and you had some of our people over, like Victoria Nuland and some other of our politicians, applauding the overthrow, and which the people didn't like the guy anyway. He was leaning toward Russia, but then we got our Western-backed presidents in there, and that triggered Putin. This was a geopolitical move by America, and we were rolling the dice on how Putin would react, and he reacted. He reacted the way he is right now. Well, guys, I've been on for 2 hours, but
Thank you very much. End the game.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'll try to be back hopefully tomorrow night with another show. So, but everybody be well.
All right.
Be well wherever.
Thank you so much. It was a great show. We gotta hear different opinions, and I believe this was amazing.
Thank you.
Quite alert.
I appreciate it. Y'all be safe wherever you're at in this world. Talk to you later.
Good speaking to everyone.
Take care.